Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, as always, presented by our wonderful friends over at ScentLok. Guys, I'm incredibly excited because the Reactor heated vest is back in stock. I'm a vest guy. I love vests because you can keep your vitals warm and stay warmer without the bulk. And as bow hunters know, we don't want a lot of bulk in our shoulders and in our arms. And so vests are really cool. Then you take it a step further with a heated vest, and there's different panels across your core and across your back to help you stay warm. The Reactor heated vest is phenomenal, and it's back in stock. So I would highly encourage you to go check out the Reactor heated vest at scentlok.com and get it while it's in stock, because they do not last long. I've got an exciting episode. One of my favorite things about this podcast is the emails that I receive from people saying I just started, or I'm trying to get started, or thank you for your podcast. It encouraged me to take the leap and start. That's why I do what I do 100%. It literally makes my day, makes my week. Every time I get an email, I'm like, babe, look at this email. And it just makes me so happy. And Jeff was one of the first ones that really sent me an email like that. I had received a couple before Jeff, but they were more of just like, hey, man, thanks, I got started. But I got an email from Jeff last year, and it basically said, hey, man, started listening to your podcast, took the dive in, just shot my first deer. Here you go with a picture. And I was just like, I freaked out. Like that makes it all worth it. Like, that's why I do this. And so we're wrapping up. This is the last episode of our Deer 101 series. So we have taken you from the beginning on barriers of entry to how to scout, where to hunt, how to hang tree stands, shot placements, recoveries. We've taken you through the entire process of deer hunting. And now I wanted to hear from Jeff, because Jeff last year was a new hunter. And so a lot of lessons learned along the way. And we're going to kind of just go over those lessons that he learned, and things that he didn't expect that happened, and things that he expected that didn't happen, kind of how he'll evolve this year as a hunter based off of what he learned last year. But I've got Mr. Jeff Lye. Jeff, how are you, man?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
Man, dude, it's October. I shouldn't say that. It's on the eve of October. It's getting there, and I'm getting fired up. I am incredibly excited about deer season. My boy is 4 years old, so all of this early season, he's been helping me put out blinds, hang tree stands, check cameras. He's fired up. I've got a couple setups to where a big blind that I can really sit him on the ground and get him below the windows. That way deer don't see him moving around playing with his monster trucks in the dirt. But I'm incredibly excited. I literally, at one of my blinds, I dug out all the grass so he had fresh dirt and he could play with his monster trucks in the dirt. But he's underneath the windows. That way the deer don't see him. There's no grass, sticks, or leaves, so it's quiet for him to play down there. And then when a deer starts to come in, I can say, hey, bub, stand up, real slow and quiet, and he can watch the deer and see everything. And so I'm incredibly excited about this season, because this is the first time I'm taking him out deer hunting with me. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. He's fired up. I'm fired up. Jeff, walk me through. So the email you sent me last year, walk me through kind of what made you want to deer hunt. Like what got that ball rolling?
Yeah. Well, so when I was in high school, my parents bought 13 acres of land out in eastern Wake County, which, for some of you Midwest folks, doesn't sound like a lot of land, but for those of us that live around a state capital or something like that, that's an enormous expanse of land for most city folks. And, obviously we started seeing deer immediately out there, and it was something that I always wanted to do, but never really had anybody to teach me how. My dad taught me to do a lot of things like work on cars and play baseball and all those things, but he was not a hunter. So it's not anything that he could transfer off to me. But for some reason, I just kind of always had in my head a vision of me holding a lever action 30-30, shooting a deer on the run across the field. I just held on to that kind of for a really long time. It's just something that, again, I always meant to get around to one of these here days, but just didn't have any way to get started really. But then after COVID came and I started working from home, I sit in this little room 8 hours a day for many, many months in a row, and just really noticed that I needed to do something to get out of the house so I didn't go crazy. I was actually cleaning my handguns one day after a trip to the range, and listened to a podcast from Vortex Optics on just the basics of rifle scopes, because it's something that I didn't know anything about. That one ended. They played another one, and one of the guys from Identical Draw was on there talking about their website, newhunter.org, which I know you've talked about recently.
Yeah.
And that just kind of got me started saying, okay, if there's an asset, a resource on that website that can at least get me going, then yeah, I wouldn't feel totally lost. So I actually registered for the website, found somebody on there in North Carolina. Now, unfortunately, the closest person is about 3.5 hours away up in the mountains. But at least then I had a starting point, and really got going, talking to him, talking to Hayden over the internet, and then via phone and text, and that kind of just gave me the confidence to kind of get out there and get started.
That's awesome, man. No, I absolutely applaud Identical Draw for their website. It's a wonderful platform. It's a wonderful tool to be used. And I would highly encourage you, if you're trying to get into hunting, trying to start hunting, go check out newhunter.org. I believe it is, right?
Yep.
.org. I said .com one time, I think, but that's an incredible tool. The guys at Identical Draw are hands down phenomenal. They're great guys. And so I would highly encourage you to go check that platform out. Before we really jump into this, I've got to make note. We are 1 week away. Next Monday, the new bows will release from Bear Archery. Let me just say this: 90 years, it's the 90-year anniversary of Bear Archery. And I promise you, they're doing things that Bear Archery has never done before. They're taking steps to be the Bear Archery that we need. The Bear Archery of old, the Bear Archery that everybody's been expecting. It is going to be an exciting year. So we're exactly 1 week away from the new bow episode, where we have on the engineers and we talk every detail about the new bows. So I would highly encourage you to tune in next week, where we cover every single spec of the new bows, how they shoot, why they did what they did, the changes that were made, the new stuff that we've never seen before. I would highly encourage you to tune in next week because it's an exciting episode. All right, Jeff. So as you began this journey, what did you expect to get out of hunting? Like, what was your expectations going into becoming a deer hunter?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I said, I mainly just wanted to spend some time out of doors, just try something new, check something off the list that I've kind of always wanted to do. And of course, I dove in head first. So I watched podcasts on YouTube and watched Hunting Public on Amazon Prime. So once that happened, I expected to kill a 75-point buck the very first hour I sat in a tree stand, because that's all they do.
That's right.
But it's really just to try something fun, man. I love being outside. I love being in God's creation, and just to challenge myself to learn something new, learn something that, at one point I'd convinced myself I couldn't do, but then got brave enough and had an ally, had some resources, and just wanted to get my hands dirty, get in the woods and see what would happen from there.
Now, to every new hunter, let me just make note of what he just said. Social media and TV shows do a really good job of making you think you're going to walk out and shoot a giant deer. And that's just not reality. Right. Now, I'm a huge fan of social media. I'm a huge fan of TV shows. I'm a huge fan of podcasts, but I believe one thing that is missing is transparency. And transparency of, man, I missed, I blew it. Big buck was coming in and I made a noise and he spooked. Or the reality of I hunted 47 days and saw one doe, because that's real. I've been there. I've been there on phenomenal properties. Like I've been there on grade A properties, and you just find them in a bad time. A perfect example. I drove down one of my favorite places in the world to hunt, Liberty Ranch in Oklahoma. It's a phenomenal outfit, and I had expectations of killing a giant buck. Why? Because it's a phenomenal outfit. And I drove down one day and was going to hunt for 3 or 4 days, and we just caught them in the absolute worst lockdown ever, and no deer were moving. I had an all day sit, 13 hours in a tree stand where I didn't see a deer. And it sucked, but that's the kind of transparency that we need to put out there is no matter where you're hunting, no matter how good the ground you're hunting, no matter how good of a hunter you are, there are going to be times where you just don't even see deer, much less a giant deer. And so that expectation has to be real. You cannot start hunting and expect to shoot a giant 200-inch buck. It's just not reality. And what happens is you have that expectations, and then you go into hunting and you might see a doe for 10 days. And then you're like, this sucks, dude. Like, this is horrible. And then you quit and give up. Like, I'm here to tell you right now, if you're starting deer hunting, expect it to suck. Like, expect it to sit there for hours and see maybe a doe, sit there and maybe see a forky. Now, don't get me wrong. There are guys who, I don't want to say get lucky, but there are guys who are at the right place at the right time. And in their first week of hunting, they kill a giant buck. That does happen, but that's not the standard. So just expect those things. So as you started, how did those expectations unfold? Like, what did you learn quickly?
Well, I knew that I was in deer. So my parents, like I said, they've got a little bit of land out there, and I sent some letters to their neighbors to just say, hey, I'm going to be hunting this land. We've been here for a long time, but if you hear gunshots, no big deal. Oh, by the way, if you want to let me hunt on your land too, that'd be fine. So actually one other neighbor, a few lots down, let me hunt in his back 20 or so acres as well. So I had a couple different spots to hunt, had cameras up, knew there were deer around. Did not realize how hard it would be to translate the fact that they were eating my corn at 3 a.m. to needing to see them during daylight so I could try to put a bullet through them. But I did actually start seeing deer on my hunts right away. Now, there's still, even with a rifle in your hand, a long way between seeing a deer and getting a good ethical shot at a deer worth shooting. And even though I'd gotten the advice from my mentor, Hayden, to just, blast the first thing that I got a good shot at, it was more of a slog than I thought. It was encouraging because, again, I was seeing deer, but then I was learning things like, oh, you need to have your corn out. You can bait here in North Carolina, so you need to put some corn out a few days before you're going to go sit, right? So your ground scent's off, so that when mama walks up, she doesn't hit that wall of my ground scent, turn around and beeline it back out like happened on opening day. So there were encouragements. I saw deer on my first several hunts. I just didn't get shots at them because they came from the wrong direction, or I came to not really love morning hunts because I walked in on them 3 different times. So you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and, eat breakfast and shower and get out the door and get there, and you're sneaking in and you see glowing eyeballs staring you in the face, and then they blow and run. So, man, I knew they were there. They knew I was there far too often, but it was enough to keep going. But like you said, there are definitely times where I'm like, I could be asleep. I could be with my kids. I could be giving my wife a break. What am I doing? But fortunately, I kept going.
That is a big lesson. And sometimes it's hard to learn. Like, sometimes that's hard to figure out on this property, should I be hunting in the mornings or the evenings? Yeah. Because I've had properties where, deer move in at 3 p.m. and start feeding, and they're going to be all around the area until dark. And so you try to come in the evening and you get there and the field's full of deer and you're like, crap, like, now what? And vice versa. I've had it where, your scenario is exactly right. You walk in and all of a sudden you start hearing stomping and blowing. You're like, dang it, like crap. Now what I have learned is, given the property, what can happen is if I come in as stealthy and as quiet and as scent free as I can, I might blow deer out of the field. But if I just tuck back in and sit down and be quiet, and let them calm down, either they'll start feeding in or other deer will start feeding in. And so doesn't mean your hunt's over. Like, don't give up and go home. Because one time in particular, well, just last year, actually, I was walking into my blind and I spooked a big buck, and I was like, crap. He had just happened to bed down in the area, and I'm like, dang it. And immediately, like, every hunter's like, I blew it. Like, he was here, I should have been here earlier, should have came in the evening, like whatever. I blew it. But I tucked in my blind and ended up shooting a nice buck that morning, because it's the rut, dude. Anything can happen. Let me preference that. It was the rut. So anything can happen. And so I just tucked back in and I saw deer all morning. And I even saw that buck again. He got on a hot doe, and that hot doe let him right back in. Just so happened it was after I'd already shot my buck. And so I was kind of just had to watch him. But yeah, I mean, don't think that your hunt's over just because that happens. What was the single biggest lesson you learned last year?
I'd say overall, I'd say the single biggest lesson I learned is that hunting is easy to do poorly, but you can still have fun doing it poorly.
Yeah.
It's hard to do it well. And at the times where I expected myself to know what I was doing better than I did, I could easily get frustrated. How quiet is quiet enough to walk into the tree? I don't know, because I'm here by myself. How early is early, how late is late. But overall, looking back, I made a ton of mistakes. I did a lot of things right. I had a whole lot of fun dragging corn in and, smearing peanut butter on oak trees and all sorts of things. And did a lot of things wrong. Still ended up putting a couple of deer in the freezer and found something that I love. Will I do it the rest of my life? I don't know, but it's certainly something that I love to do for now.
Yeah. And that is like, you also have to understand, no matter what, there is a bit of luck involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is a bit of, if the deer comes by, he comes by. If he doesn't, he doesn't. That you have to understand that. Like no matter if I do everything right, that buck could simply be bedded down with a doe for that morning. Like that buck could be out of the game for today. And we have to understand that. Like we have to realize at some point there's just a bit of luck that plays into it. Yep. I mean, just recently I was on an elk hunt in Idaho, and I had to come to that realization. Like we get there and there's forest fires everywhere, and that's just bad luck. Like there's nothing I can do about the forest fires. It shut up the elk. It locked down the elk. Like there was nothing I could do, and that's just bad luck. We have to understand that there is a bit of luck that plays into this, and we have to just accept that as hunters. And so that was a lesson that was hard for me, because I'm like, dude, I'm doing everything right. I'm in the right spot, hunting the right winds. I'm doing what I need to do, and there's just no deer showing up. And so you have to understand that and just come to that realization. Yep.
Oh, absolutely. And guys, I don't golf, but guys go out there and shoot 120 on the golf course and have fun. So, there's got to be an equivalent in the hunting world where you can go out there and spook deer and leave ground scent everywhere and do all the things wrong. And then they still happen to walk in front of you and beg you to shoot them. And so, it can still be something that's fun, knowing that I'm never going to do it at a proficiency for somebody like you that's been doing it since they were, 8 years old or whatever.
And that's what, like, some of the worst hunts are like some of the best hunts, for whatever reason. I mean, sure, I blew out a monster buck, but at least I saw a monster buck. Like, right. And that's fun. Like that's a great time. And it's something that's so hard. Like if your only goal is to kill a buck, here's what's going to happen. If your only goal is to kill a giant buck, here's what'll happen. Either A, you're going to figure out this is a lot harder and it's going to take a lot more work than I anticipated, and you're going to give up and quit. Or you're going to kill a monster buck and then say, well, that was fun. Move on to something else. Time to go somewhere else. Time to try duck hunting. Time to start taekwondo, or whatever you do. You're going to move on to another goal. But if your goal is to enjoy the process, yep, and to enjoy the hunt and to enjoy the sunrises from the blind and the sunsets and seeing deer and seeing squirrels or hogs or whatever, then you're invested, like you're in it, and you'll hang in there and you'll get more out of it than other people. And, people often wonder, like, Dylan, how do you enjoy this? Like, how do you enjoy going out and not, you hunted for 17 days straight for the one buck and you never saw him. Like, how do you enjoy that? Well, because I might not have saw the buck I wanted to shoot, but I saw 112 does. I saw 47 forkies. I saw, 12 turkeys. And that's fun to watch. And that's fun to experience. And it's fun to be in the woods without anything else knowing you're existing. And it's incredible. And we have to enjoy the process. Like this is one of my favorite times of the year. Because I enjoy the process of it. I don't just enjoy the hunt. I enjoy the process of it. And, it's a good time to give a shout out to my friends at Arrow Junkie. because I enjoy the process of like building my arrows and sharpening my broadheads and tuning my arrows. And I enjoy that. And so, you know, guys like Arrow Junkie who give you all the tools to do that, and all the resources to do that, and all the jigs you need to fletch your own arrows, and all the sharpeners to sharpen your broadheads, and everything to tune your own arrows and build your own arrows. Like, I enjoy that process. I enjoy just immersing myself in the day to day. You know, I like going out and putting up blinds and hanging tree stands and trimming lanes. And I enjoy that. And so you have to, unless, you know, because again, if your only goal is I'm going to go out and kill a big buck, you're not going to get much out of it.
That's right. No, I would agree. Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole lot more that goes into it that I've learned that, you know, that are life skills. Like you said, I mean, I bought a bow, and so I'm into the bow season this year already, and sharpening stuff and tinkering, and you know, learning how this works and how spine plays into weight for my draw length and all that good stuff. And shoot, I'll be honest, I never even really knew how to use a ratchet strap till I was trying to put tree stands on the trees last year, and just, you know, things like that I've taken away from the process, like you said, not just sitting in the tree, but all the things that lead up to it. Are certainly things that I feel more well-rounded as a grown man than I would have otherwise.
100%. Yeah. Like, I mean, you learn so much through the process. Like, you learn what you're looking for in a tree to hang a tree stand. Like, I learned pretty quickly when I moved to Kansas, don't hang trees with hedge apples above them, because they're going to start dropping and you're going to get knocked out. Like, that's what, you know, you learn those types of things, and you grow as just a woodsman. It's not even about, did I kill deer? I heard somebody really good say this. It was David Holder from Raised Hunting. And he was talking about good hunters. And he said, you know, I don't look at a good hunter who kills a 200-inch buck and say they're a good hunter. I look at somebody who's constantly putting down good deer, you know, just mature, healthy deer, and say that's a good hunter. And that's what I want to be. You know, I want to just be a good woodsman. I want to be a good, I want to be able to look at things and rubs and scrapes and tracks, and I just want to immerse myself in the process. And it's not really about killing a 200-inch buck. Now, if a 200-inch buck comes out at 20 yards, I'm not going to say, it's not about you. I'm going to put an arrow in him,
Right.
And I'm going to do it proudly. But that's never what it's been about for me. And so, you know, I get that question all the time of like, my dad is the worst. Like, hopefully you're listening, Dad, because you're the worst. He was like, just this year, he's like, when are you going to kill a big deer? And I'm like, well, Dad, first off, like, I would rather kill 7 130-inch deers in a year than 1 200-inch buck, because I just enjoy the whole process. I enjoy harvesting animals. I enjoy putting meat on the table. I just enjoy it. And so that's what you have to get down to, is just enjoying the process. Now, as a new hunter, what did that process look like for you?
Well, yes, as far as finding places to hunt, you know, again, my mentor Hayden, he looked at the public land around me and sent me some pins based on his e-scouting skills on what he thought I should be looking at. So I spent some time in the woods doing all that stuff, looking at public land, trying to find places that would be good options. I ended up hunting largely on the private out of my parents' house, and then their neighbor's spot. So as far as the process itself, I mean, it was learning all sorts of skills that I didn't have. Like, I don't love heights, so learning how to hang tree stands in a way that didn't make me feel like I was going to fall to my death and die from 9 feet. You know, trying to do everything on a budget, because again, I was trying to buy all the things all at once without, you know, getting any heat from the CFO of the family. The process of finding them was putting out trail cameras, spending time in the woods, listening to podcasts. I mean, I dove in and talked to anybody I could about it. Ended up on a mailing list for a company called Mountain Hunter Box, run by Derek Depew. He was kind enough to give me 30 minutes of his phone. Maybe it was an hour or so, just picking his brain about hunting in general. So I learned everything I possibly could about hunting any species I possibly could. And then just made up my mind that, okay, here we go. I'm going to get in there and give it a try. And opening day is this day, and told everybody that it was going to happen. So I, you know, could be held accountable, and just, you know, bought my gun, sighted it in, did get some advice from some local folks just on the best places to take my game and everything like that. But just made up my mind and went for it.
Now, budget is one thing I love to talk about because people like to make that excuse. It's too expensive, man. It's too big of an investment. You can do this for cheap. Like you can get started for cheap. You can buy, what boat did you end up buying?
Well, so again, bow for this year, I got on Camo Fire is a G5 amp. So it was new old stock from 2017. So, I'm only in it a couple $100 and then took it to a local bow shop to get kitted out all the rest of the way.
There you go. I mean, you can get into this for cheap, I wanted to get my wife into hunting. Well, let me rephrase that. I got my wife into hunting right when we got married. Then we started popping out kids and she stopped hunting. So a couple years ago, last year, I guess it was her first year back in the game. And I really wanted to get her involved. But I didn't want to spend a ton of money. Frankly, I didn't have a ton of money to spend to get her involved. And so, you can pick up, like, I got her a Bear Legit ready to hunt, for, I think, $430, from Academy. Yeah, $430, I believe, from Academy, fully set up, ready to hunt. I got her some budget camo, some Blocker Outdoors camo, some cheaper end stuff. She was going to be hunting in a blind mostly. And so, I wasn't really worried about a lot of things. I put a little buddy heater in there, so I wasn't worried about a whole lot of clothing. And so, I got her started for really cheap, and all of a sudden she was ready to hunt, a pop-up blind for $80 and a bow for 430 and, a couple hundred on camo. She was ready to hunt for $600, like ready to fully do whatever she wanted to do. Kill as many deer as she wanted to kill. And so you can do this for relatively cheap, and you can do it for even cheaper than I got her started. You can find used bows on Craigslist all day long. I spent $200 on my first bow. The first bow that I actually purchased, I spent $200. It was a Bear Charger, a budget bow. I got it set up off Craigslist for $200, and it came with arrows, a release, a case, the bow, everything. So I was hunting for $200. And so you can do this for cheap. It does not have to be $1,000 investment. It does not have to be, that's another thing. Like, don't let social media trick you into thinking like, man, these guys are shooting bows that cost $2,000. That's what I have to go out and spend to get a bow that'll kill animals. My wife's bow at $430 will kill animals. I promise. She did it. So I don't buy into that. Like, don't buy into the hype, that you have to spend X amount of dollars on all this, on all these bows and on all this camo and all this. You don't have to. Even ScentLock, even ScentLock will run stellar deals. And you can be fully outfitted. I had a buddy reach out to me, and he had gotten into hunting, but he never really bought the clothing. And ScentLock was running a massive sale at the time. And I mean, like, he decked out. Like, I'm not talking like, one suit. Like, he decked himself out, with everything he could ever dream of having in the woods with camo. And I think he spent like $800. And again, that sounds like a lot, but he went all out. Like, it was like, I need a suit for every color and every, so he went all out. So you can get started and don't have to spend a ton of money. Don't buy into that.
Yep. Go to your local bow shop, see what they have on consignment or used. Find something on Craigslist, take it to your bow shop, let them check it out. Most places will do a little pre-purchase inspection to make sure there's no damage or anything like that, and then let you go make your deal, for the bow in the parking lot. Use your bow shop. Use, grandpa's 12 gauge with some slugs in it, something like that. It doesn't have to be anything even that you go spend money on. It can just be stuff that everybody already has for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. If you find a mentor, a lot of those guys have old bows laying around that they don't mind letting you shoot. A lot of those guys will say, hey, this bow might be 7 years old, but it'll still kill deer. My dad shot so many deer with like a 1984 bow. Like, I mean, just, garbage, little metal sights and you're drawing back 70 and you're holding back 65, like, just horrible bow. Sounds like a gun going off, but he killed so many deer with that. And I mean, like, up until in 2007, we bought him a new bow. So up until 2007, he was shooting like a 1984 bow, and killing deer with it left and right, putting them down. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. I mean, you can go and find dirt cheap bows on eBay, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, you name it. Now, what will change for you? This is your second season now. What will change for you from last season to this season? Like, help out that new hunter and just say, hey, listen, this is the mistakes I made that I'm already going to be changing for this year. So here you go.
Sure. I think kind of some of it's what we already talked about is have reasonable expectations. And that's something that I've just had more time to look back on. If you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying the process, then go do something else. I mean, stay home and watch college football, whatever you want to do. But having reasonable expectations of what it will take to, and really just to be happy to kill a deer. You know, if I put a couple of deer in the freezer again this year, it's going to be a win. I've got my kids involved as far as talking about it and looking at pictures and everything else. I know that this year I'm going to pay. So I've gotten access to a couple more pieces of land. So I've got a little more flexibility now, but I'm going to pay more attention to my scent and the wind. Last year, you know, my wife didn't marry a hunter. I just kind of jumped into it. So I had to fit it all in. So whatever day I could go hunting, I was going to go sit. If the wind was blowing straight into where they were coming, it was that or wait till next week. So I just had to go get it done. I'm going to try to be a little more picky about when and where, since I've got some more flexibility. And you just try to put as many of the odds in my favor as I can. You know, like I said, I've got a bow now, so I've got to be within 20 yards or so to get a good shot until rifle season starts next month. So just trying to really think about what are my make decisions that give me more options on, you know, where I bait, where I'm going to even cut paths through the briars or rake the leaves out so I can sneak in there. You know, where can I put in entry points into the woods? They're going to let me hunt different scenarios for different winds or different weather, things like that. I think that's something that I just didn't have the capacity to pay attention to this year that I'm going to pay more attention to, or couldn't pay attention to last year, that I'll be more diligent on this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, like, never ever stop learning.
Yeah.
If I can just give you the biggest piece of advice as you start hunting, never stop learning. Here's what happens, I think, is a lot of guys, they find success in their first year and then they're like, I've got this. Like, I'm all good. But then the next year things completely change and they're like, wait a second, like, where are the deer at? They were all coming here last year. And you have to learn, oh, acorns are dropping over here. Like, that's where I need to be hunting. Or, oh crap, they have this planted in winter wheat this year. So now all my deer are going to be over there rather than where they were last year. Like, you have to evolve as a hunter, and never, ever stop learning. You know, even if you've got a small tract of land, I have one property and it's only 6 acres, but it's like a phenomenal 6 acres. It's unbelievable. Even in that 6 acres, things change. Like, even in that 6 acres, I'm like, wait a second, why aren't the deer coming from where they came last year? So I walk over there. Oh, 2 trees have fallen down. Like, they can't get through here anymore. So now they have to go all the way around. And that's why I'm getting scented, because they're coming all the way around the other side to get here. And so you have to change as things change in the woods, and you have to never stop learning what the deer are doing, how the deer are doing it. Like, I learn something every year about what a deer smells, what a deer hears, what a deer sees, what a deer. I would highly encourage you to go back and listen to the tactics episode we did in this Deer 101 series, because we have all of these tactics that we use as hunters, but then we really unpack them as to why they work and how they work and what a deer hears, and what tones do deer hear, and what distances do deer hear, all of those things. And that's things that I can take and make myself a better hunter with, because, I learned that deer don't really hear in the tones I thought they hear in. And so that'll change the way that I hunt. I learn that when a deer sees a decoy, they're looking for different things than I thought they were looking for. They don't just lock onto that decoy. So anyways, you have to, as a hunter, continue to learn the noises that deer make when certain things happen, the way that deer respond when certain things happen, the way that, you just have to continue to learn and evolve as a hunter. Now you did shoot 2 does last year. Is that correct?
I did. Yep.
Dude, that's phenomenal. Like, that's a fantastic start. Again, it's not, and I say that because that exceeds expectations for a new hunter, in my opinion. Now, again, like we've already talked about, a lot of hunters go in, they're like, dude, I only killed 2 does. Like, where's the horns? Like, I wanted a massive buck on the wall. dude, 2 does is phenomenal in a first season of hunting. And that's
Thank
something
you.
to be applauded.
I appreciate that. No, it was a lot of fun. Obviously my wife was real patient, letting me go out as often as I could. So yeah, it ended up, being something that in hindsight I can be proud of.
Now, you shot 2 does last year in your first year. Do your goals change this year? Like, are you going to hold off on does? Are you going to stack bodies? Like what does this year look like for you?
So I think it's going to depend on the property that I'm hunting. One spot is a horse farm actually right behind our neighborhood. My next door neighbor owns it. Noticed her out there struggling with her lawnmower one day early in the spring, said, "Hey, let me just knock your yard out for you." So I've been mowing her grass all summer. Then as I was trying a trail camera in the backyard, big 8-point walked by and I've got a picture of him. So I said to her, "Hey, by the way, how would you feel about me taking my bow back to your horse farm?" She said, "Hey, by all means, go for it." So, if I get a chance to stack some bodies on the does that are strolling through eating my tomato plants every year, then we might just go ahead and put them in the freezer sooner rather than later. But out near my parents' house, I've got pictures of some good bucks that I'm going to probably hold on to and try to keep the does in play, for the rut, like you said. Saw both of them actually Friday night, did not get a shot on either one of them, but know they're out there. So, if I can put something with antlers on the wall, then that'll be super duper exciting. I know they're out there where I can hunt them now. I've seen them. I've actually seen a buck in person rather than just on the camera. So that's a good thing. But at the end of the day, I know I want to take a couple of does out so that they'll stay out of my yard. And then other than that, I'll probably wait until later in the year. And honestly, I'm trying to get a couple of friends involved as well. I've got a buddy who used to hunt back at home, when he was down east in North Carolina, but hasn't hunted much since he's been up here. So, trying to convince him to go to the range and dial his rifle in so we can go out together. So going to try to maybe save some of them for him as well.
Now that's also a big lesson on how to acquire land. Like, don't just stroll up to a property and say, "Hey, can I hunt your ground?" I have learned it speaks volumes to roll up to a piece of property and say, "Hey, listen, I would really like to hunt on your property. But what can I do for you on your property? Like, is there anything that you need done? Mowing, trimming trees, hedge bushes, like whatever. Can I help you do anything?" And most people, that changes their answer. Like I'm straight up and honest with you, because they understand you're not just trying to take from me, you're trying to help me. I've had 2 guys who said, "I don't really need help mowing. I kind of enjoy it. But what I need help with is maintaining the banks of my ponds, because it's just a lot of weed eating and I don't want to do that." And so I weed eat their ponds and they let me hunt. And so ask people, what can I do to help you on your property? How can I help be of assistance to you? And most people are super receptive to that.
And even if they're not, you don't need most people to say yes. You only need a couple of people to say yes. Like I said, it's my next door neighbor. And then I did a good enough job being just respectful of the other place that I hunted last year. And this is my parents' neighbor. He just turned me on to another, let me have another, 10 acres of some family land that he manages. So it's not even like I did anything special other than be respectful and, keep him
100%.
involved into what I was doing. And, you don't need to hunt 50 different places as long as you've got as much as you can handle for your schedule, then you're in business.
Yeah. Absolutely. Before we move on, guys, quick shout out to my good friend Nick Deeker at Nick's Knife Works. Absolutely the best knives I've ever used. They're hand forged, custom made to exactly what you want them. I literally called him and I'm like, "Hey man, this is the specs that'll fit the side of my binocular harness. I want it super light, this length, this width, so it slides in the pocket of my binocular harness." And that's exactly what he built me. And so I would highly encourage you, if you're in the market for a knife, which everybody should be as a hunter, you need a good knife. I would highly encourage you to check out nicksknifeworks.com. You can buy them straight online. You can reach out to them if you want something special built. But they are phenomenal hand forged knives, forged right here in Kansas. He's a phenomenal guy. Great to work with. He'll build you exactly what you want. So go check out nicksknifeworks.com. What did you learn as far as gear? Like what about your gear will change? Because in the first couple of years, I've found that most guys are like, "Okay, I thought these boots would work. They don't. I thought this backpack would work. It doesn't. I thought this." So what about your gear did you learn? Maybe I should change this.
Yeah. Well, so like I said, I don't love heights, and I was on a budget. So the tree stands that I bought were, the budget model tree stands, which if you don't love heights and you get up there 10 or 15 feet in a pine tree and the wind starts to blow and the tree does this, and if you don't already know Jesus, you're trying to make sure you nail that down quick.
There you
I
go.
realized pretty quickly I didn't love hunting out of a cheap tree stand. And so you're going to roll your eyes. But I actually ended up in a saddle by the end of the year, even with the rifle.
A tree diaper?
Exactly. So, was able to use my same sticks that I had for my death trap tree stands. But it just allowed me I feel more comfortable. I can stand up. I can actually move around. Like I said, I was shooting with a rifle, so even with a 308, I can't get all the way around, but I could get a pretty good field of view, so that even if they don't come from exactly where I think they're going to come from, that I can still get off a pretty good shot. So I know you're not necessarily on the bandwagon yet, but in hindsight, if I could have just gone with a saddle to start with, I definitely would have saved myself a little bit of money. If anybody needs a good deal on some budget tree stands in Central North Carolina, let me know.
Let me say this though, like I bag on saddles. I don't really bag on them. I'm just not. I haven't bought in yet. Let me say this though, they're a phenomenal tool and they serve their purpose very well. They're very well. It's a very good way to hunt. I see that. Like I recognize that. I just haven't done it yet, and it's something that I plan on trying eventually. But when you have 36 tree stands and 12 ground blinds, it's really hard to say I'm going to go to this.
Sure.
So again, phenomenal tool. I've just for so long, I've hunted the same properties here in Kansas and in Oklahoma at Liberty Ranch. Like I've got all the tree stands set where I want them and how I want them. And so until the situation occurs where I can use a saddle, like if I was going to Missouri to hunt public ground, that's what I would take as a saddle. But just with the way that I'm set up, I've got 3 leases here in Kansas and all the tree stands are already set up and ready to rock and roll. They're at Liberty Ranch in Oklahoma. 14 tree stands are set up, ready to rock and roll. So wherever I want to hunt that morning, I just go to the tree stand, climb up. Same with Arkansas, where I hunt in Arkansas, and Missouri, where I hunt in Missouri. All the tree stands are set up, ready to go. So saddles are a phenomenal tool, a great way to hunt, a very successful way to hunt. I'm not at a place where I need them. So I will continue to bag on them, I guess, just because it's not what I do. So
that's all right.
Yeah. Now, Jeff, I know you listen to the podcast, obviously, so you know what I'm going to ask you. I need a field note. A quick tip that you learned in your first year, something that I can take and make myself a better hunter with.
Well, so like I said, I've been in the woods with a bow a little bit this year. And what I learned Friday night is if you're walking through the woods and you need to get down in a hurry, don't get down and land in a situation where you can't sit there for 15 or 20 minutes comfortably. And I know that might sound simple, but if you get down on your knees, because that's what you've practiced shooting in the backyard, that's great until you've got to sit there long enough that your feet go to sleep and then they start to hurt. And then you start to wonder if you're ever going to be able to walk again.
That's good.
For me, squat down in the catcher, crouch. That way I can stay there for forever. And if I need to, draw and pop up, I'm ready to do that. But I've learned that already this year that
that's good.
You don't want to go down on your knees unless you know you're going to be back up in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I do have a tip I want to share. If you carry rain gear, which everybody should, packable rain gear, carry 2. I carry. They're literally $3 at Walmart, like the NBA wristbands, sweatbands. Carry 2 of those. That way, when you throw your rain gear on, you can put 2 wristbands on your sleeves, and it's going to hold that rain gear up against your arm. Because rain gear are notoriously floppy, and if you try to shoot, it's gonna hit your string. So I put them around the jacket. That way I've always got them, just 2 sweatbands. That way when I put the jacket on, I can just slide the 2 sweatbands on and it holds my rain gear up against my arm and I don't have to worry about shooting. Just a quick, easy tip. So Jeff, man, thank you so much for your encouraging emails. It's because of those types of emails is why I do what I do. Guys, if you are beginning the journey, I would highly encourage you to find a mentor, find somebody that can help you. Even if, like Jeff said, they are a few hours away, you can at least send them screenshots of maps and they can help you and say, this looks like a funnel, this looks like a good draw, whatever. But find somebody to help you, and then never stop learning. That's what we have to do as hunters. We have to evolve. We have to learn. We learn something new every year. So I learned something. Like, I've found if I go to Texas, or a place I've never hunted before, I learned something completely new, because those deer respond differently. They act differently. When you call, they act differently. When you, so never stop learning, never stop evolving. Always try to wrap your head around what are deer doing and why. Before we go, one more shout out to my friends over at the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship. John V. Mesh was a firefighter in the Kansas City area. He had a strong passion for getting kids involved in the outdoors. And now that he has passed on, his brothers have started a memorial in his name, and it's a scholarship. So they actually they host these events around the country to get kids involved in outdoors, and they're raising money to give a scholarship to one kid every year who's going into like a park ranger or something of the sort, a game management type of scholarship. And so I would highly encourage you to check out the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship. I am picky about what kind of nonprofits that I stand behind and support, and they are one that I firmly believe in. So go check them out, the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship at johnvmesh.org. Jeff, can't thank you enough for coming on, man. Good luck this season. Can't wait to see your pictures.
Sounds good. I'll keep them coming.
You're going to send me that giant 8-point on the ground. I believe it.
I'm going to do my best.
Guys, thanks for listening. Make sure and tune in next week to the new bow episode. It's an exciting year for bows from Bear Archery, and you're going to want to hear all the details. Guys, thanks for listening. Y'all have a great week.